We're live. We're live on the Jeff Nosine podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today Enson Inoue. What is up, sir? How are you?
Good, man. Everything's good. How you doing?
I'm excited to have you on. We were connected through a friend, Marlon, and God, when I looked into you and your history with MMA and as an entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur for 27 years, and one of our companies we run is Kimura, and we manufacture and design boxing martial art equipment. So there's a connection there as well. So there's gonna be a great conversation. I'm a huge MMA fan as well, and your history and just your life experience. I mean, there's probably so many lessons we could learn from this as well. So let's just bring it back. Like, where did this all start? Like, where did you grow up? Brothers, sisters? Like, give me a little history of Enson growing up.
Where I started up, I grew up born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. I have one brother, and we were actually raised up to participate in a lot of sports. So when I grew up, when I was in high school, I played basketball, baseball, volleyball, and ran track. And on the side, we actually played racquetball. So fighting actually for me wasn't a part of something that I wanted to make a profession. It was more just me trying to learn to defend myself on the streets. And that's when I started looking into martial arts. I've never really thought of fighting in the ring. Never thought I'd be like a professional fighter, or this would be actually my calling to make me who I am and make my life what it is. So it was one of those things that I actually was a lucky person where everything in my life just happened without without really being planned. It's just the movement of my life just took me in this direction, and I live a great life now.
What was the age when you first joined, and what was your first martial art you actually started studying under?
That's funny because my first martial arts probably when I was five years old,
Well, that young,
and
huh?
my mom then put me into karate.
Yeah,
I think it was the third or fourth class. I think I got tripped. Like they walk around testing your stance.
yeah.
I got tripped, and I remember running out, feeling like the teacher was picking on me. I remember running out of the gym and never going back. So that was my first experience of martial arts. I really didn't like it. I don't know. It was funny because I never ever remember my dad pressuring me to go back. And you would think, yeah, the proper thing for a kid is to make them go back. Don't be a quitter.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that you wonder. You got to show your kid and teach your kid not to be a quitter. But I'm like the farthest thing from ever quitting in anything I do now. And somehow within that, my dad letting me quit, and I guess going on with other sports, and don't know if he psychologically helped me through most of the stuff, but I end up I think I'm one of the few fighters that's fought a full career without ever giving up or tapping.
So when was your back? When did you get back into martial art? What age? And what was the what
Actually,
was it
I
after that discipline wise?
I chose myself to get back into martial arts when I was in I think it was in high school. I was in Hawaii. There's a lot of street fights in Hawaii. So a lot of times, back in our day, there was no guns. There was knives and fights.
Yeah, same
So pretty much, you have to,
same as my era as well. We're probably yeah. I'm
yeah, yeah.
46.
Back
We're
back
talking
in those
about that the other
peaceful
day.
days.
Yeah, we're talking. I was talking to my kids about it the other day actually, because my son we're just talking about high school. My both my kids were in high school. My son's 15, my daughter's 17, and I was like, nowadays, and I have a lot of close friends. My best man at my wedding, my best friend is a police officer, sergeant, and a couple of my really close friends are police officers, and they always say with even my kids are like walk away from a fight. And when we grew up, it was just you get into a scrap, a couple of punches here or there. Eventually, somebody would break it up, and you talk it over, and you move on, kind of thing. That was it. It was like fist to fist. Nowadays, kids are pulling knives and guns for just looking the wrong way.
Yeah. So back in that day, it was pretty much you learn to fight.
Yeah,
You learn to fight in case you get in a confrontation in the street. You learn to fight to survive. Nowadays, it's like you learn to walk away from fights to survive.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that's the reason why I started martial arts, defend myself on the streets.
And what was the actual martial art you started with?
The first one we actually started with was I think it was Wing Chun.
Okay.
everyone loves Bruce Lee,
Yeah, I was gonna
Jet
say that.
Kundo, Wing Chun, Jet Kundo.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the first one I got into. And then of course you see all the flashy kicks of Taekwondo. So I started getting into Taekwondo also. I was probably the least flexible guy in the class. So, Taekwondo really didn't suit me well. But yeah, I went all over trying to find the perfect martial arts. I did Aikido for a year. I did Muay Thai. I did another art called Hapkido.
Aikido, yeah.
Yeah. So I went moving around, and lo and behold, my first year in college, when I was in the University of Hawaii, I was walking across the campus, and there was a Brazilian guy with a desk set up with a TV playing with a video, and it was this practitioner of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu beating up all the other arts. And when I stood there and watched that video on the TV, I was like, wow, I think I got to try that. And that's my
What
first year in
what
college when I got introduced to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
what year was that? Before UFC, the first couple UFCs, or after the first couple UFCs?
What's that?
Was that before the UFC started, or after the UFC, or after? It was
Before
already.
the UFC.
So it was right before the UFC. Interesting.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I mean,
It was
obviously
before,
after,
I think it was probably a couple years before the first UFC.
yeah, because obviously Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was introduced to the world after the UFC, right? The first couple of UFCs. So
Yeah.
you're into it. So there was a school in Hawaii at that time, a Gracie school.
No, there wasn't. It was actually a non-credit course in the University of Hawaii.
Oh, seriously?
So what Helson Gracie did was he had he rented out a studio in the athletic department in the University of Hawaii. It was Studio 4, and every Tuesday and Thursday he had a class there.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that's when it started. No one knew what Gracie Jiu-Jitsu was. I didn't even know. I never heard of it.
How was your experience the first couple times? Because it's an eye opener when you first do it, especially if you don't understand it, the complexity of it and the art of it, right?
Yeah, when I first started, I remember seeing on the video all the street fights and them subduing all the different martial arts. So I got excited, signed up for the class. And when I went to the class, it was all about self-defense stuff. If he grabs you here, swing your arm over, lock his arm here. If he grabs you in the headlock, do this, do that. And it was like nothing like the realistic fighting that I saw in the video. So I stuck up the class, stayed in the class, and at the end of the class, I approached Helson and I told him that I want to wrestle. I want to do something that I saw in the video. And there was a little Brazilian guy. His name was Jacare Romero, and he was a black belt, and he was probably about 50 pounds lighter than me. And he said, "Hey, you want to just roll around with him?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And I looked at him, it's just so small. I said, I'm pretty sure you guys know some martial art, but there's no way you're too small." And there was like, just roll around with him. Around with him. And I knew nothing about positioning.
Yeah.
He took my back, choked me out. And, like everyone else, like, okay, he got lucky. No, let's try again. And again, he took my back, choked me out. And right there, when the second time he choked me out, I was like, oh my God, I got to learn this. And I went balls into Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I found out that Helson had classes in his garage. And I joined those classes, and I was training 5 days a week after that. Was hooked on Gracie Jiu-Jitsu learning. I religiously wanted to learn it to defend myself. And I knew that was hard to learn for street fights.
How and so I'm assuming early 20s at this point?
Yeah, no, I'm probably I think 19 years old.
So you just started
Or 20, no,
college.
I'm 21, I think, because I actually went to college 1 year. I took off of college and went to play racquetball in the States.
Like as a
And
professional?
when I came back, professional. When I retired from professional racquetball, that's when I went back to college and I found Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So it must have been when I was about 20 or 21 years old.
Let's talk about that quickly. Racquetball. I also read it. Is it your brother was also professional?
Well, he was actually the man. He became number one in the world. So
Oh,
it's more
seriously.
like he was a racquetball player and I was also professional.
I love it. I love it. And you did that for, you said you were professional for, you said only 1 year, 2 years?
No, well, what happened with racquetball is when we were little, my parents used to play racquetball for exercise.
Yeah.
And they brought us into one of the sports club that they were working out at. It was called Oahu Athletic Club. And there were Sundays was family day, so they could get the family in for free. So she convinced me and Egan. I was surfing almost every day, and she convinced me and Egan that come try out the racquetball. We went in there, and my mom kicked our ass. And I was like, "This is bullshit. This isn't for me." And I just stopped and went to play racquetball. I mean, went to surf.
Yeah.
And Egan continued. Egan had this obsession about beating my mom. And eventually, Egan started beating my mom, started beating my dad, and became state champion. And when I saw Egan doing so well, I said, "Oh shit, maybe I should try this." And that's when I got into it. So I played amateurs. Egan turned professional, and I actually went and turned professional and played on the pro tour for 2 years. I moved to Texas, in the States, and I lived there. I chose Texas because it was central, and wherever they had a pro tour, we also went to Vancouver to play. But wherever there was a wherever there was a pro tour event, Texas was pretty central, and so I moved there to travel. And after 2 years of playing on the pro tour, I realized that I was losing. My parents were supporting me the whole way, and they were just losing money, paying for my trips.
I was going to ask that. Is there, and I mean, you could probably comment more on your brother's level, but is there money in racquetball, or was there money at that point?
Well, the highest I got was number 28 in the world. And if you're number 28, you're not making any money. You're losing money every trip. My brother was in the top 4. And when you're in the top 4, you're making money. So I got lucky because his sponsor paid for his rooms. His sponsor got his car. And I got a free room because I stayed with him. I just rode with him in his car. A lot of his shoe sponsors and clothing sponsors, we were the same size, so I could actually get that. I could use that. So I was pretty much, getting, free stuff from him. And if I ever got sponsored, it was probably because I'm Egan's little brother.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So, when it comes down to that, and you wonder how long you should be doing this when you're not breaking into the top 24 and you're losing money and your parents are having to support you. And I thought that, I got to be realistic. And I gave it 2 years a chance. I didn't do it. And I decided to retire and go back to school. And lo and behold, it was probably one of the best decisions of my life because I found Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
When you think of tennis, it obviously has a bigger global viewing audience, but I mean, top 25 in tennis, you're still making really good money. So it's a different world.
Yes.
Over the years, has racquetball changed? Is there more money involved now, or is this pretty much the same? This is not a sport you see on TV.
Pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's not a sport you see on TV or anything like that. Not here in Canada anymore.
Well, the fact that you don't see it on the Olympics, you don't see it on ESPN.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm making a guess, but I don't think it's actually gotten very much more prosperous. I think it's still a real grassroots sport that's trying to make it.
You know what sport is really taking off and is in popularity, and there's courts opening everywhere. And I know in Europe it's gone crazy. It's pickleball.
Pickleball.
It's gone insane right now. It's literally,
I heard it's taking over.
and they're really pushing for to do an Olympic sport. So I mean it's everywhere you look. There's pickleball courts. The other day I was with my son. We're driving and I was like, they converted these 2 tennis courts near our house into pickleball courts. I'm like, what the hell? And there's all these people playing with coaches, and I'm like, yeah, it's taking off. It's interesting, and the young generation are playing it too, which is really, really interesting. So let's talk about there's so much I want to talk to you about, but let's talk about your MMA career. Like, when was your first fight, amateur, and how did it develop into pro? And then we'll talk about Pride, which is you have some epic battles in Pride and the show and Shooto and all that. But what was your first introduction to actual competition, like first fight, amateur, pro, and all that stuff?
I've never had an amateur fight.
Oh, you went right into pro, huh?
Yes, because after seeing Rickson Gracie fight in the Vale Tudo 1995,
Yeah.
I thought I wanted to give it a shot. And the reason why I decided to fight wasn't because I thought I could fight, is because I wanted to test myself under extreme emotional situation. Because a lot of people, in life, you can do things very good, but when there's pressure, when there's people watching, if you're in a stadium, all of a sudden you can't get the consistency that you had in practice. And it was the same thing for racquetball. I could hit a shot 100 times perfectly, but when you get in the court, when there's people watching, when there's nerves, when every shot counts, all of a sudden your percentage go to 70, 60%. I also saw a show when I was a little boy, watching a show with a family driving down the road. The husband lost control of the car, went off the edge, turned over, car caught on fire, and because he was panicking, he couldn't open the car door. And I always felt that one day in my life, when it comes down to a situation where I'm going to have a hard time controlling my emotions, and if it's something I have to do to save my family, I want to be able to be level-headed enough to actually be somebody that can help the situation. And I use sports to practice that. And in racquetball, it got pretty good, where I never could be as good as I was in the practice court, but I got pretty close to it. But consistency was pretty good when you compare it in practice and in the court. And I thought I had good control of my emotions. And, as you know, I trained Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in Hawaii. I got to be good friends with Royce Gracie and Rickson Gracie. So when I was in Japan and Rickson came to fight in Japan, I went and watched to cheer him. And what surprised me was when he won the fight, he won against this guy, David Dubecki, which is a huge guy. And we're kind of afraid that this guy is so big, we hope Rickson can handle. And when Rickson choked him out, I remember I was so out of control. I stood up on the seat screaming. And it actually surprised me. And I was thinking, oh my God, I can't even control my emotions watching a friend fight in the ring. I just had this crazy desire to test myself in the ring and see how I could deal with my emotions if I was the one in the ring. And I felt that if I had that experience in the ring to control my emotions, I felt that it would help me be better prepared when I need to control my emotions in a life and death situation, possibly to save someone that I care about. And I never thought that I could ever control it completely, but I thought I could be a better, I could control it better in a life and death situation if I had one time to try, test it in the ring. And that's when I got on this little mission of getting into the ring once. That's all I wanted to, is get into the ring once. I called around all the different Japan associations. I called rings. I called Pancras. All of them wanted me to send in a resume and wait for the new boy test. And I called UWF. They wanted me. I had to be like a certain age, a certain height, a certain size. And I was like, why does it matter if I can fight? But I realized later UWF was a pro wrestling ring. Yeah. And then I called, well, as I was waiting for rings and Pancras to have a new boy test, I called Shooto. And Shooto looked at me, and when I called Shooto and I told him that I did Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and I'd like to maybe spar with your champion or possibly be an asset to your gym and maybe fight an amateur fight, they just straight up told me, oh, come check us out. Come down to the gym. Drove down to the gym. Sayama, the founder of Shooto, was there. There was a little guy in the gym, and he told me, why don't you do some grappling with him? I want to see your grappling. And I grappled with the guy. He was a lot smaller than me, but he didn't know positioning. He didn't know Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. So I mounted him. I took all the positions on him. And when that was done, I remember Sayama sitting down looking at that guy and saying, oh, we can use this guy. And that's where Sayama looked at me and said, can you make your pro debut in 3 months? And my first reaction to that was, no, I'm not a pro. I'm not fighting. I want an amateur fight. I just wanted one amateur fight just to test myself in the ring. Later on, I found out that guy was Nakai Yuki, one of the top jiu-jitsu guys in Japan now.
Yeah.
And Sayama, I moved into the gym. I lived in one of the private rooms next door and trained every day for 3 months to prepare for my pro debut. And that's why I didn't go to amateurs. I went straight to the pros. I didn't want to. I actually thought I wanted to go start in the amateurs and work my way up. But I guess Sayama saw something that he knew that I could probably do good in the pros. And with the rule set that they had, I guess he knew my ground. My forte was my ground, so he wanted to. He actually changed the rules of shooting, because in Shooto there was no ground punching on the ground. I mean head punching in the mount position. They had only body punching. And when I went in, they decided to they changed the rules to freestyle rules. They called it Shooto freestyle rules. That's where you could. It was like body tudo, where you could.
Yeah.
Like kind of like the pride rules now.
Yeah.
So it was weird because one fight just led to another. And after the first fight, I got usually you get a little black and white name in there, like Enson Inoue defeats Shigeta Shingo. It was a small little writing. But because there's a big hype on Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, I had like a full color page. And I remember it saying, "Oh, there's a Japanese person that knows Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. He's a monster." And it was a full color page, So right there, Sayama got excited and said, "Can you please fight one more?" And that actually continued for 4 fights. And he said, "Please, Enson, fight one more." And on the 4th fight, I fought this guy named Andre Menard, which is one of the famous kickboxers. He used to fight in K1.
Yeah.
And when I beat him, that's when things started changing in my head, saying, "Hey, wait a minute. Maybe I am good at this, and maybe I can make a career of this." So up until my 4th fight, it was just one more. I always wanted to get back to Hawaii, where the beaches and the ocean is.
Quick question. So let's go back to that. To your first fight. How did you react? Because that was your goal, mindset, reaction, your breathing, all that stuff. How did you react? How after the first fight or during the first fight? Were you calm? Or how was it?
I didn't. Well, I got because the guy knew Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, I actually got mount position right away. Once I took him down, I got right mount position. And in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, it's like you got the mount, you pummel the guy, and it'll finish the fight. And I remember getting on the mount and pounding him, and he doesn't give up. And I'm thinking to myself, holy shit, he was supposed to be quitting. And because my emotions were so high,
yeah,
I remember actually getting tired mount punching the guy and thinking, holy shit, I'm getting tired. I mean, if you see the video of the fight, you can't tell I'm getting tired, but I was getting tired, thinking, holy shit, I'm not going to be able to finish this guy. And as soon as I thought that, I remember him turning to his side. And back in the day, there was no rules about punching in the back of the head or whatever.
Yeah, different world.
I remember hitting him. I was hitting him in the back of the head, and he started kind of, I don't know, what is so kind of yelping like, arr, arr. He started like crying. And then I remember the ref pulled me off, and I was like, oh shit, thank God I was getting tired. So that was pretty surprising for me that I got so excited on the mount. I just was overexerting on every punch. So
that was a lesson emotionally and just to be able to control your emotions.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
So what age were you when you moved into Pride?
When was that? My first fight in Pride was, I think it was 1999, I think it was. So 32.
So you're already, I mean, for a pro athlete and an MMA fighter, I mean, nowadays standards, you're already starting to get up there. You're at the end of your peak, right? So you fought from 32, you fought till what?
My pro debut was at 27.
Oh, so you probably never took much wear and tear then. You're that, yeah.
No, not at all. I actually caught up with the wear and tear and all my hard trainings that I did. Yeah. We had that old school training, work through pain, don't go to hospital, don't be a pussy, tape up and get to training tomorrow,
So, what was your experience with Pride? And I want to talk about Pride. I
Um,
want to. There's a couple of things I wanted to bring up with Pride. But what's your experience with Pride? Like how? I mean, at that point, Pride was. I mean, it was the biggest thing, right? Over in
yeah,
Japan,
Pride,
it was
Pride was
massive, massive.
Pride was bigger than the UFC. Was bigger than anything. And the promoters, Mr. Sahakibara and Mr. Morista, they treated the fighters like kings, man. I mean, at least for me, I was treated. They waited on me. I got what I wanted. They took care of us. I mean, we are taken care of like royalty.
I was to say, you guys were rock stars back then.
Oh, rock stars, yeah, total rock stars, yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy. It was a different world altogether. I mean, and
Mhm.
what was? I mean, you hear a lot of I haven't wrote this down here, but Yakuza, like their control over Pride and all that. What was their relationship with Pride, and was that the demise of Pride, their relationship with Pride?
Yeah, Pride. I mean, like any big company in Japan, they're all associated with the yakuza.
So it's like if like when you're talking about a business, if a business tries to open up in Japan, do they somehow control all this? Like you have to go through them. Like is was it that controlled at that time, or was it only bigger
Well,
companies? Like how did they control it?
well, if you're opening up a business in the territory of a yakuza family, it's almost procedure that you make either like you say make your greetings to them, and a lot of times you have to pay a little, you know you can call it protection money, or you can call
Yeah.
it money for thank you for letting me work business in your town. And it's also something that you might want to actually have, because if you have any trouble with any type of gangster or yakuza group, they will come out and solve it for you.
What
So
what
yeah,
was what was your relationship with them? Did you have any relationship with them? Is it more just friendships? Like how did that all work?
when I first started fighting, no, I had no relationship with the yakuza, except I did get into a big controversy with one of them. I actually had a fight with one of them. Yeah, so they kind of rough. They kind of try to strong arm people on the street. If you get into a little problem with them, they'll show either their finger missing or they show their tattoos, and most Japanese people will back down. And for me, I didn't understand that part of the society, and all I knew was whether you're a lawyer or a doctor or a gangster or a yakuza, right is right and wrong is wrong. And if you're wrong, I'm not backing down.
Yeah.
So I had a big situation with one of them that I actually physically got involved with him.
How did that come
And
up? Like what did they do to you to piss you off?
I'm lucky because I knew somebody that was really high up. And when he found out that I was having problems with that Yakuza group, he came out and just in one phone call squashed it all.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so that's pretty much my furthest associated with any type of Yakuza that in back in that day. But as Yakuza and any type of gangster, they love fighting. And my style of fighting, where I feel I could beat the devil himself if he's standing across the ring, and I would never ever. I'd rather die in the ring than give up or quit. And that type of attitude and that type of quote unquote samurai style is really attractive to the gangsters and the yakuza. So once I started fighting, you know, I got a lot of them befriended me. And they're there's all like any profession in the fights business, in the medical business, in the educational business, there's assholes,
Yeah, of
there's
course.
people that act stupid, there's nice guys, there are understanding guys, people who walk with loyalty and honor. And it's the same thing in the yakuza. You got punks, you got guys who try to throw their authority, guys that bully people, but you also have a lot of yakuza people who live by the code of honor, the code of the Yamato Damashi way. And that I for me as a fighter, when they would come to me, I was able to choose who I wanted to be with and who I wanted to rack with, because the ones who acted tough and the ones that tried to throw around their clout, every time they called to go out, I was busy.
Yeah.
So I could control that. So after I started fighting, that's when I started getting a lot of relationships with a lot of them.
did any of these relationships put you in a situation that was uncomfortable, or in a situation where you had to do something you really didn't want to do, or you were able to control all that?
No, I actually I controlled my relationship with them.
Good.
Like for instance, when you first start a relationship with them, it's easy. You have to control it. So for instance, I'm not under them. I'm not one of their youngers. So I do not go and call. I do not jump at every call that they give. Enson, we want to see you. Even if I had something to do, I cancel and I go to them. I wouldn't do that. Half the times like, sorry, I'm tired. I'm staying home tonight.
Yeah.
So I made sure I created that type of relationship where, in the beginning, when they really want to be friends with you, that's when you got to establish that.
Yeah.
So if I'm like going and jumping at every beckon and every call that they have, that's what I'm establishing. And that's when you run into problems, when they start expecting you to do things and be there for them. So yeah, I was able to control that. The only problem I did have by having a lot of relationships with them is back in the day, Shooto didn't want that reputation, although they did have a backing of Yakuza too.
Yeah.
They try to hide it, and they try to hide it, period. And then when my reputation got out that I was a fighter that had a lot of connections, they had like this huge meeting with all the commissioners in it, and they kind of almost like try to scare me into cutting all ties with the Yakuza.
Interesting. Interesting. So when you hear the stories of Pride's this my like Pride pretty much shutting down because of their relationship, and the public being aware of that, is that true, or is that what was the stories with Pride and
Well, I'm not. I don't know exactly what happened, but I know there was a problem with Pride in the Yakuza group, and it became public. And I think I understand it had something to do with Fedor Emelianenko.
yeah,
Yeah. So I don't know exactly what the problem was, but when that went public, that's when all the sponsors that were sponsoring Pride had to turn away.
yeah,
It's a real funny society, Japan, because it's understood. People know. I mean, everyone in this town have met Yakuzas.
yeah,
They know that Yakuzas back most of the companies, especially big, fight associations or big companies. But for some reason, when it goes public,
they won.
everyone gotta turn their back. Yeah, it's weird. It's weird like that. Like it's like Coca-Cola, say for example, Coca-Cola. They definitely have Yakuza connections. But it's not, if it ever goes public, all of a sudden Coca-Cola is gonna lose all their sponsorships because of that. It's weird. And that's what happened to Pride. So that's where Pride just lost the TV contracts and all the contracts that actually helped them survive.
Let's talk about your fights. Give me one or two of your epic battles that stick in your mind as some of these greatest moments in your fighting career. Was it Randy
Well, the first one,
Couture,
I have three
Shamrock?
actually.
Yeah.
You just named two of them.
I had Frank on my show. He had a crazy story growing up as well. But let's talk. Well, okay, let's talk
Yeah,
about those two, and then
Frank's
let
had a
me.
crazy story.
Yeah. Let's talk about those. Let's talk about those two, and then let's talk about the other one. Let's talk about all three.
Okay, so I think Frank was the first one that I had, yeah. And Frank Shamrock's fight was a real heated fight because he was like the king of Pancras,
Yeah.
and I was the Shooto champ. And at the time, back in that day, Shooto and Pancras were like this. They hated each other, and they forbid us from training with each other.
Yeah.
So when that happened, it was like, okay, now we're gonna show who's better, Shooto or Pancras.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was a big thing on that, where me and Frank would, before we fought, that was a big hype on that. The other thing that was big hype on that is me and Frank that both had the same contract from the UFC, that whoever won the fight was going to have a title, the middleweight title fight in the UFC against Kevin Jackson, which was one of the top wrestlers.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. So we had the exact same contract going into that fight. So that was a big hype for that fight. And for me, Frank was a little bit smaller than me. I really thought that, the Prankers rule set didn't allow him to get as good as our rule set would be, where there's ground punching. Prankers, they actually allow open hand
Yeah.
slaps, and which can be really painful. It almost can be like a punch when you palm someone straight into the face. But out of etiquette, I think they didn't really go that hard on those kind of things. So, I just felt that being able to, close a fist and be able to punch in the ground gave me a lot of advantages. So when I had a lot of confidence going into that fight, and man, did I learn later that freaking Frank is a warrior, and he also is like a freaking cardio machine. That guy just keeps going, man. Yeah.
What about Randy Couture?
Randy Couture, yeah, I
This is a
actually,
very big win for you. I mean, big name.
yeah, I wasn't planning to fight Randy when before I fought Randy, I got offered actually Dan Severn,
Yeah, another big name.
and I was like, wow, that'd be a good name, big name, tough guy, and I felt he was really slow, but he was strong and durable. But I thought that would be a good test for myself.
That guy's like a bear, man.
Yeah, so actually, I accepted that fight, and we're supposed to fight. And the Shooto group came back and said that he had other pro wrestling obligation. And Dan Severn was fighting like every weekend almost.
Yeah, I mean,
So
that guy fought every weekend until he was in his late 40s or early 50s. Like he just went on and on and on and on.
so
And
that
on.
fight fell through, and then that's right at the right timing where Randy Couture was having problems with the UFC.
Yeah,
And that's where he kind of left. He left the UFC. And that's when that name came up. They said, how about Randy Couture? And at first it blew me away. Like, holy shit, Randy Couture.
yeah,
And I knew I was over my head. But I also knew that, he was human. And if I caught him in an armbar, I'd break his arm. If I caught him in his choke, I'd put him to sleep. So for me, like I said, my whole mission in the fighting wasn't to become a champion. It wasn't to win fights. It was to test myself. And I thought Randy Couture would be a great test. And I thought, Randy Couture is one person that a lot of people didn't think I would even get close to even having any chance with him. And I accepted that. But I also accepted that if I do the right things, I felt like
a fight is a fight.
Yeah, the
Anything can
true
happen.
odds for that fight was Randy Couture had 99 roads to walk to win to victory. I had one. But you know what? I didn't have zero. I had one. And if you walk my road, the other 99 don't matter, right? So when I felt that I gotta train hard, I gotta find a way to walk this one road that I have. And as you know, I was able to pull it off.
What was the last one that sticks in your mind?
Igor Vovchanchi.
Was that the one that it was like a 40-second, 30-second fight, but it went balls to the wall?
No, that was Genoviev. Igor Vovchanchi.
One of my staff was showing me that video. You just haymakers left and right.
Yeah, well, that one again. When I saw Igor knock out Francisco Bueno in the fight before that,
yeah,
and Francisco Bueno's a big boy. He's a tough guy. And when Igor hit him, and he just pretty much like the last Rising, where Philip Kimura knocked out Daryl, and just Daryl was frozen standing up.
Yeah,
it was pretty much just like that, where Francisco Bueno's eyes rolled back on the first punch, and it was stiff. And on the way down, Igor hit him a couple more times. And I remember sitting in the front row of the arena, and I remember next to me, his girlfriend or wife at the time was sitting next to me, and she started screaming bloody murder. Like she thought he died because he wasn't moving.
Yeah.
And something about that moment when I saw that terror, and Igor was there like doing jumping kicks, spinning kicks, and jabbing in there. And I mean, just looking at that, like that ferocity and that coldness that Igor had. I don't know, for some reason I felt that I had to be on the other end of that and feel that fear and feel that anxiety and see what I would do with it. So right there after that fight, I remember calling Pride, Mr. Sakakibara and Pride, and saying that if he can, I want to fight Igor Vovchanchi. And that's when that fight was scheduled. And the reason why I think that one turns out the best for me is because I won the biggest victory in my life. Is I won the fact that I wasn't going to lose to my anxiety and fears. My mission in that was to face Igor at his most dangerous place. And I wasn't about to run away and go for a tackle. If my objective was to win the fight, I would tackle him, take him down, and be on top of him with my groundwork. But my mission wasn't to that. My mission was to face his most dangerous place and see what my heart would do in that fear zone. And I felt that I won that battle because when we started throwing down, he threw me to the ground and he jumped in my guard when he's a striker. And right there for me, it was like a huge victory.
Yeah. It's just listening to your stories and the way your mindset going into these fights is it's a true martial artist, right? If everything's a
I think
test,
that back in
every
that day, it was about martial arts. Yeah,
everything's a test. Everything is just your anxiety, your mindset of just being able to test yourself. I mean, I just had on our podcast is celebrities, influencers. I have just all kinds of different people. Like um and a couple weeks ago we had on the UFC knockout leader Matt Brown on. And he's just his mindset is every time he goes into the cages, he's there to die in that cage every single time.
yeah. He's one of those old school fighters still actually fighting today. Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he probably will end up with. I mean, he's tied for the 13 knockouts, but I mean, he'll probably end up. I mean, the way he's going and the way he trains, I mean, he'll probably still end up with the lead and probably being the all time, which is pretty pretty amazing. But his mindset is the same thing as testing himself every time going in there. Like he doesn't look at it as a victory or a loss. He looks at it as a battle of who was better man that day. And it's just everything you're talking about. It just reminds me of our conversation we're having, which is pretty
That's
amazing.
awesome. That's a big compliment.
Where there's one individual that obviously was very close to you and is no longer with us, Kid Yamamoto. Let's talk a little bit about him because I mean, the newer generation won't know who he is unless they go look at videos. But I mean, when I started watching UFC and all that, like his name was, prior to UFC, like his name was
He's
massive.
amazing.
He was just like he was like the rock star of MMA at one point, right? Let's talk
Mm.
a little bit about him and his legacy and what he left behind and his relationship with you because I think it's something that people need to hear.
Well, as a martial artist, he was one of those fighters that comes out one in a million. Man, you teach him something one day, he uses the next day in sparring. He was so athletic, and on the mats, he picked up stuff so fast, even in the striking. And his power, he had so much power and speed and agility. And that kid was like pretty much born for martial arts, I felt.
Yeah. When did you first meet him?
I met him because I started dating his sister.
Oh, so you didn't meet him in the gym. You met him after the
No,
fact.
I met him because I dated his sister, and then his sisters would come down and train with me. And I ended up marrying the sister, not
Yeah.
the sister I dated first, but the other sister I met after I got to know the family. It's a real funny story. And it was I knew about him. I knew that was their brother,
Yeah.
and he was a top wrestler.
Yeah.
But we used to go and with my girlfriend at the time, we'd watch her brother, going to a wrestling event. So we go and cheer for him. I got to meet him just really lightly. And what happened, or big movement happened, was when he was in his college, he got into trouble with the Yakuza.
Oh, interesting.
He shot a Yakuza. She was just fooling around with his friends with an air pistol. And I guess, I don't know if I was on a ricochet or maybe he did aim at it at him. I don't know. But what happened it hit the Yakuza in the face. The guy chased him down, followed him to his school, went to his dorm. They chased him out of his apartment, and he had to call me. And he actually jumped on the second floor of his apartment. And as he was running away, he called me for help. And I just told him to get to a restaurant where there's a lot of people. Made some calls and called those guys off. But because of that incident, his college kicked him out of the school. The Wrestling Association in Japan put him on probation for a year where he couldn't wrestle for a year. And that's when I suggested to him that when your sisters come down to my gym to train, why don't you come down with them and just roll around with the boys? And he did that. And he fell in love with martial arts, and he said, I want to do this for a living. And that's what happened. And when he was off probation in wrestling and he was allowed to wrestle again, the father asked me to put him back in wrestling, but I told, I asked Kid and I said, "What do you want to do?" He said he wants to fight. So I told the father, I'm not going to force him to wrestle. He wants to fight. And the father totally disowned him. And he had no money. So I had to support Kid. I gave him a car. I paid his rent. There was one time when I was walking by his apartment that I got for him. I lived next door. And he was sitting in the dark with candles. And I was saying, "Oh, since when did he get into this spiritual type of stuff?" I popped my head in and I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "Oh, his electricity went out. He couldn't pay his electric bill." So I went and paid his electric bill, took care of him and trained with him. For 2 years, he moved me every day training. He even came to me with Thailand, took him all over to train. And, I don't know if you know it, but we actually ended up having a falling out towards the end of his career or in the
No,
middle of his career. It's
no.
because after I got him into K1, he won K1. I got him into all the big fighting. When he became a star, guess who comes back into the picture? His father. His father disowned him because he wouldn't wrestle, but they wanted me to make him quit fighting. But when he got very famous and the father saw money, the father wanted to come back and start taking over. And that's the problem I had is contracts I made with K1 was an agreement that me and K1 had with hit. Me, K1 and Kid, we had an agreement. And the father wanted to break the contract. And because he was a star at the time, when we made the contract, he wasn't a star. It was we made a contract for 4 fights a year at 50,000 a year. He was fighting in Shooto before that. He was fighting Shooto for like $2,000 a fight.
Yeah.
And I got him contract of $50,000 a fight for 4, so 200,000 a year,
Which is good money back then.
very good money back then. And I actually even was able to talk to the head K1 guy Tanigawa and change the rules for Kid. Have you ever seen in any other K1 fight where they're fighting one round kickboxing and second round they put on MMA gloves and fight MMA? I made those rules for Kid, and that's when he started winning, and that's when he became a big star. And when he became a big star, all of a sudden the man who disowned him comes out into his life. And unfortunately, Kid didn't have the heart enough to tell his dad to, "Hey, step back, man. I'm not going to backstab Enson." And he decided to go with his father, and that's when I stepped away.
No, I never heard that story.
Yeah. So it
Did
was
you guys did you guys connect before his passing or anything, or no?
well, what happened with that is, yes, I would see him at arenas, and we were cordial. I said hi and everything, but I was never a part of anything anymore. And even when he passed away, I didn't know he passed away. I didn't know he had cancer.
Yeah, that's sad. I mean, it's sad because you
Yeah. So
essentially you gave him that opportunity, you gave him that career. I didn't even know the whole story like that, which is pretty crazy that you're his introduction and his livelihood in a way for years, getting him into that. That's pretty. Do you still
yeah. So
do you still have a relationship, or like, are you guys still married or no? You with his
no,
sister or
no.
no?
So I divorced his sister, and even the divorce didn't affect our friendship.
Okay.
Even after divorce, she was really close to me.
Yeah.
But it was that the money thing that the father started coming out for the money, and I didn't take any money from Kid at all.
Money's
And the
the root
father wanted to take a
money's the root to all evil.
oh yeah, money can destroy things. Yeah. So, it ended up where I put away from Kid, and it came to a point where I don't know what happened, what type of talks happened, but as far as I'm concerned, every time I saw him in the arena, we said hi. But for some reason, they kept it a secret from me that he was dying of cancer. And if I never got to say my goodbyes to him, I would have resented the whole family for the rest of my life, or even not just the whole family. I would have resented the people that knew, that hid it from me. And some of my close friends knew that he was dying, and didn't, because they didn't want me to know. They decided to keep it a secret and show their loyalty to them instead. And I was lucky that you know the universe took care of me. And it was just this weird situation that happened where I knew someone that knew where he was, and I got to get a letter to him I had that person write a letter for me, and the person wrote the letter, and I told, the letter pretty much said that, hey, I know what's happening. You've always been a little brother to me, and I just want to tell you that I really care about you, and I wish you the best. And the person who gave him the letter told me that when he read it, he cried. And in a way, although I couldn't see him face to face, that was my closure.
I was gonna say, I
I
give
could
you
say
some
my
form.
goodbyes to him.
Yeah, to give you some form
In
of closure.
Yeah, and even when he passed, I didn't. I found out like everyone else in the news when he passed.
Yeah, he was way too young too. Way, way, way too young.
Yeah, it was one of those things that when God takes the great ones up early. Yeah.
Yeah,
Elvis Presley died young. Bruce Lee died young.
yeah,
Way
yeah.
too young, kid.
Yeah, way too young, way too young. And a guy like that, if he was fighting in the UFC at this time with social media, he would have been massive name at
Yeah,
his
he would have.
peak. Oh, it was just his look, his star. He had a star power, right? Which is very. It's like the Conor McGregor almost. I mean, he could have been
Yeah,
a
he was
massive,
exciting. He
massive
was
star.
powerful. He had this great personality. So he was a good kid. He had a great, lovable personality.
Yeah, yeah. So give me your days now, like you're back, you live in Japan. You never went back to Hawaii at all? You always stayed in Japan from there on?
Yes, I've been in Japan for 33 years now.
33 years now. So give
But
me a
yeah,
give
I'm
me an
lucky. I'm lucky because I have a bracelet business in Hawaii that I
Yeah,
run, a Power Stone bracelet business. So I go back to Hawaii about 4 times a year. So I'm lucky I get to see Hawaii a lot, see my parents. But yeah, like you said, my days here now, I was asked by one Konishiki, a sumo wrestler, to help train an ex sumo wrestler that actually left sumo, which is now my student Sudario Tsuyoshi.
yeah.
So he's a fighter in rising now, but that's part of my day too now. So I'll get up and I'll do my daily routine. I'll feed my dogs. I raise kois and breed kois now too. So I'll
Yeah.
take care of my koi ponds, water the garden. I got a big yard here, so I water the garden. Then on a typical day, one of my students will come over. I would train him, feed him after he leaves. Then I do my thing, either go to the store to buy supplies for the bracelets, or go train someone else. Like today I had 2 trainings, went to train someone else, hold mitts for someone. And pretty much just do what I enjoy. Watch TV, watch movies. I'm into trying to get back into shape now, so I do a lot of workout on my own. I do a cold plunge twice a day,
Good.
working on my breathing. Yeah, so I'm in a good point in my life where I'm really happy and I'm really grateful for what I have.
How old are you now?
I'm 56.
Yeah, yeah. No, everything you're saying right now, you do sound like you're in a good place. And it's
And
freedom,
the
freedom,
best thing about it,
yeah.
this will sound real corny, but the best thing about it is I found the best girl for me. I mean, for me, she's the best woman in the world. But that's one of those things like, oh yeah, she's not better than my wife. So for me, I say is to me, I found the best person for me. And she gives me the peace, she gives me the support. She's 20 years younger than me. So she's in a different part of her life where I can support her. And I've been through what she's going through, and I can be a big support for her. And she supports me a lot in, my after fighting life. So it's a real weird dynamic. We're in 2 different generations, but we click very well.
Yeah, love has no age, right? And you have to understand too is that mindset of you're at peace right now. So everything you're doing right now is I always say freedom is being able to do what you love every single day and waking up with a smile and being able to enjoy your day, right? And that is financial freedom. I mean, people look at what's the value of money. I mean, the value of money is be able to the only thing that's the true currency in this world is time, right? And being able to do what you want when you want and be able to, like you said, train people when you want, do your cold plunges, wake you up. Talk about your bracelet business because I'm into that. I love those things too.
Oh
Like,
yeah. So I got a bracelet business. I started wearing them in Japan because it's known. They believe that it protects you.
okay,
And I totaled two Mercedes Benz.
you did what? You totaled?
I totaled pretty much. I mean, don't take it. We're not going to take the car to the shop to fix. It's pretty much gone. And the only injuries I had in both accidents was a fat lip from the airbags that hit me
Yeah,
and a broken bracelet. So like they say in Japan, it takes anything that was supposed to come to you. And so instead of me breaking, the bracelet broke. And I just religiously always kept one on because of that. And I ended up, getting some for people close to me whenever we had parties. And the person that I used to buy from, because I used to buy so much bracelets from him, he said, "Hey, I'll teach you how to make them." And he taught me. First bracelet took me 3 hours to make. It was horrible. It looked ugly, but as I made thousands and thousands, I got better to a point where I felt confident putting it on social media. People wanted to buy, and 14 years later, I got a
good.
huge business on the.
It's been
Yeah, it's been
14
14
years.
years.
Good for
Yeah, and I
you.
got
Good
a
for
got
you.
a website, destinyforever.com, that sells the bracelets, and I got actually opened up a shop, a business in Hawaii.
Very,
So
very
travel back
cool.
and forth to open the shop up. Yeah.
Very,
So I
very, very
love
cool.
that, enjoy that. I go to Hawaii and I stay for like 2 weeks at a time,
Yeah.
and I'll make over 300 braces in the 2 weeks. Just continuous orders coming in, and I love it.
What's the website again? I'll put that on our show notes.
Destinyforever.com.
Very, 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 very cool. And you make them all in Hawaii, or you make some in Japan as well?
I make them in Japan, and the mail orders on the website are all made here in Japan and send
Do
out
you
from
still
here.
physically hand make them all yourself?
I physically me and my wife can make them. So there's a lot of people that learn how to make it in the Hawaii shop,
Yeah.
but we both can make it. And a majority of them, I think maybe 70% of them, I'm the one who's making them. And unless someone suggests for her to make them, or someone just doesn't care, she'll make some of them to help me out on the orders.
Yeah.
But if not, basically, if an order comes in, it's usually going to be me making them. I personally make them.
That's awesome. That is awesome. 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 Did you always have an entrepreneurial side? Like I've been an entrepreneur for 27 years. Like, have you always had that little itch in you?
Well, not really. I mean, even when I opened up purebred gyms, it wasn't something that I planned to do. It was something that just jumped into my lap.
Yeah.
Even this business, I didn't plan to make a braces business. It just happened. So,
Which is a lot,
I mean,
which is a lot of your life.
what's that?
Which is a lot of your life. It just happened.
Yeah, my whole life, even like coming to Japan. I came here for a 1 week racquetball tournament. After the racquetball tournament, decided to stay in Japan to learn the language. So when I go back to Hawaii, I'll be able to speak Japanese and get a good job. Stayed here another 2 years. At the second year, my brother asked me, "Hey, why don't you take over the E-Force company that he has and do the Japan side?" Decided to do that. 2 years later, the company got sturdy. Before I left, decided to test myself in the ring, get in the ring once, and my fight took off. As I'm fighting at this Shooto gym, the gym has problems. The owner of the gym asked me to take over, so I created purebred jiu-jitsu. My whole life was like that. I mean, everything that happened, although it happened so awesomely, it wasn't something I planned. I was this kid that I want to live in Japan. I want to be a professional fighter one day. I want to own a gym. I want to have a bracelet. It was just something that pretty much happened because of the movement of my life. I'm a super lucky guy.
Do you still have the gyms? You still run them?
Yes, I have a gym. I have a gym here in Japan. I have a gym in Guam, gym in Saipan. There's a gym, affiliate gym in Thai.
So
There's
do you have partners in this business, or you still run them yourself? Like, how does this run?
no, I have all the people running them for me. So we just opened up one in Malaysia, purebred coaching.
Good for you, buddy.
Yeah, and
Good
what I
for
do
you.
is before COVID happened, I would travel to every gym and watch the classes, teach the classes sometimes, and I actually have an affiliate gym in Kingston, Ontario.
Okay, we're going to talk about that. I was going to bring that up to you. So you're one of my staff. Like I said, my company's called Kimura, where I'll show you after. But we design, manufacture martial art and boxing. We've been doing that for almost 18 years, 17 and a half years. That company.
Wow.
and in Canada, we're top dog in Canada. And one of my staff went to a seminar that you ran in Kingston, and one of my staff here was talking about that the other day. So that did happen, and this is probably about 7-8 years ago, maybe a little longer
Well,
already.
it was actually a yearly thing before COVID happened. I think I went up for like 5 years in a row.
You did, huh?
Yes, and actually, I guess got the owner of the gym of Grizzly Gym, Mark Martel,
Mark Martel, yeah, yeah, yeah.
actually contacted me like
But
three
they're one
months ago.
we supply for them.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
small
So he
world.
actually contacted me and said he wants me to come out this year again.
I would love to come meet you. If I know you're going to come out, I'll come out and meet you there.
Yeah. So we're actually in the. I got a really busy year, so we're trying to see if we can do it sometime this year, but if not, next year for sure. So we're
So
trying to find
how did that all come about for Canada? They reached out to you. Like, how did that? I mean,
yeah, Mike Martel reached out to me, and he actually came to Japan once, and I got to meet him in Japan. We kept in touch, and he just one day asked me to come and do a seminar, and he became like I promoted him. Yeah, I promoted him, and he became affiliate of the Purebred. Yeah, so
that's pretty awesome.
Grizzly Gym. Yeah.
Yeah. Small world, man. So you've been in Canada quite a few times then. Have you been to Toronto?
Yeah, you know what?
Do you fly into
Time,
do you fly into Toronto or you fly
time
into Montreal?
I fly into Toronto, I drive to Kingston.
Which is a good drive.
Yeah, it is, because I stop over at Niagara Falls, maybe spend the night there, go into the casinos, get to play casinos a little bit. And so when so Mike actually brought me up. And the last time actually I came to Kingston, I think the week after I left, marijuana became legal in the whole country.
Yeah.
So that whenever it got legal, I was there like the week before that.
Yeah. So that was probably about 4 years ago. It was right before COVID.
Yes, right before COVID started. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure we're gonna keep in contact, and when you do come back, I mean, because we're like my office, warehouse, showroom, and all that stuff is like 15 minutes from the airport in Toronto. So when you land, we're just right here. So I'm sure we could connect, and I could show you around a little bit as well.
For sure, I'll definitely be coming out there again. I'm actually looking forward to seeing Mike and seeing the people at the students at Grizzly Gym again. It's been a while. It's been 4 years, I think.
Yeah, give or take. Yeah, that was just before then. So where can your audience follow you, get a hold of you? Anything like we talked about, buy your bases. I'll put that all on the website, and I'll put all that stuff, because we have, like I said, we have a massive Canadian audience this show. So and just give me your social media, give me all your information.
I'm active on all my social media. I'm personally do all the messaging, all the posting for Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and now I just started doing TikTok.
You started TikTok? Okay, good.
Yeah. Good. So if you look on your Google Enson Inoue, and that's me. It's me. If you message me, it'll be me answering the messages, and all the posts is what me doing personally. So I check everything. I'm probably one of those guys that's on their phone too long. But if you send a message, if you want to reach out, send a message to Instagram, Facebook, whatever, Twitter, and I'm the one who's actually looking at them and answering the messages personally.
Are you looking at building more affiliations as well?
Oh, I'm not actually looking for it, but if there's people that come out and ask me to do it, yes, I'm open to do it. But I also would need to know what kind of person the person is, and what style they have. I had a guy in the States ask me, he wanted to open a purebred gym, but I've never trained with him, don't even know how he fights.
Yeah.
So I don't want to do that where there's no personal touch on it.
So is there any young athletes, is the last question, that actually I have two more questions, but the young athletes that you're working with now that you see have a bright future?
Yeah, Sudani Suyoshi is one of my students that's fighting in Rising now.
He's only been fighting for 2 years. Is that the sumo one?
Yeah, the sumo guy. Yes.
So is he a big boy? Is he a heavyweight? Like, when you talk about sumo?
He's huge. He's like 260.
So he's just right under the weight limit.
Moves like a lightweight. Moves like a lightweight, man.
Yeah.
He's fast, agile. Yes.
Very, 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 very cool. How many fights has he had in a rise?
I think he's had I think 8 or 9 fights now.
Do you want to eventually
And
get him to the UFC?
oh, that's definitely the ultimate goal. But honestly, he's not ready for the UFC.
Yeah.
Maybe in a couple of years he might be.
How old is he? How old is he now?
He's 25.
Yeah.
He's still a young boy.
Yeah, very, 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 very much so.
Yeah.
Last question for you. And I think you're a person that prides yourself with your legacy, the way you conduct yourself. If something were to happen to you right now, how would you want to be remembered by your loved ones and your friends?
I would like to be remembered as someone who really cared about people more than myself, and someone who lived and fought with integrity, honor, compassion, and with the utmost loyalty. I believe loyalty is not gray. It's you're either 100% loyal or not loyal at all. And right now in this world, you have a hard time finding people with true loyalty.
Yeah,
you might think you have true loyalty with someone for 10 years, and one incident will show you that his loyalty isn't true. And I've lost a lot of people that I thought was brothers in the last years, but I've gained a lot of guys that confirmed to me that they have true loyalty. You know, true loyalty. If you have someone out there that has true loyalty, I mean, hold on to them and be willing to die for them, because there's a rare thing nowadays to find someone that has true loyalty.
Yeah, I agree with that.
That's all I want to be remembered: someone that had true loyalty and who lived with integrity and honor.
I love that. I love that. This has been an amazing conversation, brother, and I'm sure we'll have you on again. And like I said, I'm sure when you come to Canada next time, we will connect, brother. I appreciate this. Thank you.
For sure. For sure, man.